Okay, so here are the rails, and here is our show.
Completely off. Completely gone today. What in the world? Derailed.
Yay, you're here. Welcome to the CK and GK podcast. Let's get going.
I knew it was Tuesday when you walked in. It's Tuesday.
Welcome,
Amazing.
everyone. We're so glad you're here. Oh, man. Today we have a special guest. We have Cindy Shuster, who's a certified parenting coach, here to help us out with our kids because really, who doesn't need help with two kids? And it's going to be a great show. Stick around for our interview with her.
All right. Yeah. So first, I have to introduce my co-host, Caitlin. But you can just call her an artist because she's really good at drawing me in.
Oh, you're the
Amazing.
sweetest. Okay, well, Cindy, I don't know how many of our episodes you've listened to, but I have to do weird Leslie Knope compliments. So I'm introducing Jenny. She is my wild and crazy flower pot. I don't know. And Cindy, I'm so glad you're here. You are our transcendent little seahorse, and we're just happy here.
There's a first for everything, and I can honestly say that's
No
first for
one has
me. I've never
introduced
been
you
called
like
a
that.
seahorse.
Right.
Yes, I would say
Transcendent
that.
one at that. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to be a seahorse, I would like to be a transcendent kind.
Exactly. Right. I don't know. They just get weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
It's so fun, though.
It is fun to see what kind of random words you can throw together and turn them into a compliment.
You guys live the Austin motto, keeping it weird, right?
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
that's the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we entertained middle schoolers in subjects like history and science for as many years as we did.
Right.
All right. Let's do circle time.
Yes. Sit crisscross on the rug. We're going to tell some stories. And we'll start with our current obsessions, which mine is the Mating Cast audition video. If you have not watched this yet, you can pause this episode and go Google this video.
It's so good.
Everybody knows that I have a giant crush on Peyton Manning. So when I watch it, I am a little bit more enthusiastic than the typical watcher. But it is hilarious. It's Peyton and Eli doing auditions for a third host for their broadcast on Monday Night Football. And they have a whole host of celebrities try out. The celebrities are saying the funniest things. One of my favorites is Peyton and Eli are sitting there in their little dress shirts and their quarter zip pullover sweaters. And one guy just looks at him and says, "You guys dress like this in real life?" Behind the two brothers is a board with string a la some kind of murder investigation show or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's what they are promoting as possible candidates on this board. One of them is Prince Harry.
He does have a podcast. Maybe he's maybe he would be a great addition. Who knows?
Yeah.
He likes sports. He's athletic. Although the idea that Prince Harry would spend time doing that is beyond ridiculous.
Exactly. Like they the audition opens with Peyton saying, "How do you feel about auditioning to be on the most popular show in television?" The guy looks at him and goes, "Isn't this for the Manning Cast?" It's great. It's really great. And I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I will tell you that the first time I watched it, I was alone and still cackling out loud.
I kind of want to watch it right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole ADHD thing. I'm like, oh, I gotta stay
Yes.
in my seat.
Yeah.
I'm definitely clicking on that once we get off.
For sure. We'll make sure you have the link right away. So, because I watched it yesterday after Jenny sent it to me, and it's really worth your time. I promise.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge Peyton Eli combo fan. They're just awesome.
Yeah.
And it's just so wholesome and funny.
Mine is so weird, but my cousin is getting married in like a few weeks, and this is a black tie wedding. I have never done a black tie event in my life, and I'm nearly 40. So I don't know what I'm doing at all.
I
So
thought you were in
like,
a sorority in college.
it wasn't black tie. We didn't do black tie. I mean, we had formals, but formals were like, you could. It wasn't black tie.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
At least the boys were never black tie. The girls, of course, went all out, but the boys were like, I'll wear, like my button down and khakis in college.
Right.
So, or maybe a sport coat, but it was never,
Okay.
So I've never done anything that's like a strict dress code. This is black tie. You can wear this length dress or this length dress or whatever. So, I found a dress. I've purchased all of the under things that will make sure that everything fits the way it's supposed to.
So comfy.
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to be like snatched in, like I'll look like a Barbie doll. I can't wait. But the part that I'm having a hard time with is my hair. So all I have been doing lately in any free moment I have is going on to, like, of all places, Facebook Reels and watching girls do their hair in cute, like, updos that don't look complicated.
Right.
So I have been because the dress has a high neckline. It needs to have a hair up sort of situation. Right. But I don't know. My hair is like this. It's this curly mop of crazy. And I just have to figure out how I'm going to use my wax stick. I'm going to slick it down somehow, but I got to figure out what actually is going to happen in the back. So I can't stop watching these videos. If anyone has good, easy wedding hair, please send them to me in our DMs. I would really appreciate it.
I love this influencer. It's just classically Cassidy on Instagram. And her hair is longer than yours, but it's still thick and full. And she does easy hair every day. Okay. And it's always a different style, and it's always stuff that she can just do herself with, like, pigtails or whatever. It's cute. Okay.
Yeah, I have nothing to offer. My hair is like yours times, like, but on steroids, because it's also got frizz and it's coarse. So this is why, I'm as, like, slick to my head as I could be today. And it's in this.
It's cute bun. I love
cute.
that.
That's all you have to do. You can do that.
I could do that. I just need to find a way to, like, it can't just be like a messy bun. The only buns I know how to do are, like, ballerina buns that fall out, right? Mm-hmm. Like the twisty kind, and then like a big messy one. Those are it. So I got to figure out a way to, like, marry the two into something that looks formal. Yeah. So that's what I've been obsessively watching on Facebook Reels. The only things I get now are, like, nail videos and the occasional, like, bad driver video, and now hair.
Yeah.
It's got me figured out.
The struggle's real.
Just go watch Peyton a couple more times and you'll get some more football videos.
There we go. Perfect. I do have golf videos showing up on my Instagram Reels because Bryce sends them to me, and it's all golf fails, and they're hilarious, and I don't know why I'm into it, but I really am. But right now, that's not the obsession. The obsession is hair. Cindy, do you have any obsessions right now?
So when you sent me this, I was, like, sort of free thinking, like, as we all talked about our mutual ADHD, I'm like, I'm going to, because I'm reading this book, Monogamy. So I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't obsessing about the subject monogamy, but it's this book by Sue Miller. Because I've been married a long time, but, I'm perfectly fine with the monogamy thing. But she, I'm obsessed, like, I've gotten away from reading. I like that short attention span thing, the dopamine hit that Netflix gives me, and it becomes hard and harder to, like, pick up. So that was, like, sort of my goal this summer, was to force myself to read. So this is a book that I don't have to force myself to. I'm not, like, she is, like, just sort of capturing, like, marriage and like how hard it can be, and the ups, the downs, all. So I can't stop reading it. It's, like, kind of moody, and so that's one thing. And then I said the other thing, and this is my guilty sort of pleasure, which is reality TV. I'm obsessed with, like,
you are speaking Caitlin's language.
You are speaking my language right now.
I mean, it's who I am. Like, I can't get away from it. I'm obsessed with it. So, but I had never really gotten into the Below Deck. And
oh, yes.
so then there was this scandal on the Australia one, which kept coming up
Yes.
on my feed. So I was like, well, I have to watch that now. I'm obsessed with Below Deck Australia. Have you guys watched it?
So I haven't seen Below Deck Australia, but I have seen the original Below Deck, and I watched the Below Deck sailing yacht for one season. But I know the girl that you're talking about because she was on Aisha. She was on the original Below Deck, and then they moved her to the Australia one. And I know the scandal you're talking about. And
well, she's like the chief stew, but she's not involved in the scandal, but she is fantastic. I cannot get enough of her. She's like, everything's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm obsessed with her and the way she talks. I cannot get enough. So this is my new obsession. And it's crazy. Like these people that are richer than rich get on this boat. Like who can afford this? They're like, hand them a stack of money at the end. They get these tips of like $25,000, just at the end of whatever gazillion dollars they just pay for this cruise. And they're having to put out these amazing meals. And so I was like, I cannot believe I've been missing this in my life. So that's definitely an obsession now. Cannot wait till Sunday. I think Sunday night.
If you haven't seen the original Below Deck with Captain Lee, I would highly recommend. There's a Below Deck Mediterranean, but I don't like the captain as much. She annoys me.
Oh, is it Captain Sandy?
Yeah, she's fine. There's something about her that rubs me the wrong way. I think it's the way she speaks to her crew. There's something about it that just feels icky. But Captain Lee is my favorite. He's amazing. And the really old episodes of this show, there's some crazy. There's one girl who like starts a fire by like frying Oreos. It's the weirdest. It's so wild what these people are dealing with on this boat, but it's really, really, really entertaining. I'm a Bravo nut, and right now you're giving me very Jenna Lyons vibes from.
Okay, well, you just
I'm feeling it.
You're comparing me to Jenna Lyons, like
yes,
life made.
No, those are the vibes I'm getting. Those are the vibes. Jenny, this is the one who's the former J. Crew head of design.
Yes.
Oh, no, those are the vibes. The glasses, the hair, it's all working. It's
amazing.
Yeah, I was like, the first thing I thought when I saw you was like, oh my God, Jenna Lyons vibes for real. So
amazing.
Yes, I love it.
So thank you. I had tried to watch the Below Deck earlier because of my obsession with Brian. I'm like, of course. And I was like, it was okay. The captain on this one plays like the straight man. Yes. First of all, he's kind of hot. He's actually really hot. But then he'll do silly things but always sort of in a straight way, and I just love him. And then he will just fire people. Like he doesn't, he's like, well, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to let you go. Like there's the whole thing is just perfect. Everything about it is perfect. I'm like, show. Why didn't I think to be a stew when I was coming out of college?
Because it looks really hard.
Yeah.
I didn't think to do it.
It just, I didn't even know such a thing. It does, but they get like at the end of like 3 days, they get a $1,500 tip plus whatever that, and they do that like 10 times over a summer. I mean, it's a lot of money. So it's like, then you could just go play for a while.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend.
I'm trying to get Jenny on the Bravo train. I think I'll get her there at some point.
It will happen at some point. It might actually happen sooner than you think, Caitlin, because ESPN is in a fight with our cable provider.
Yeah, they are. Woo.
So our sports watching is not as much as it used to be.
Limited.
That's a crisis. That would be a crisis in my house.
Yeah.
It would be.
And last night, John's like, I just want to watch SportsCenter. I just want highlights. I don't know why these billionaires can't get along. And I guess I'm an airhead. And I said, well, can't we just watch baseball tonight? And he said, Jen, that's also on ESPN.
Oh, dear.
We cut the cable cord. We just have YouTube TV for that reason.
We have YouTube TV. Yeah.
I love it.
Me too.
That makes sense. All right, so now it's one of my favorite segments, the Gem of the Week, and this is the opportunity for you to use me as downward social comparison. At least you're not me. A few weeks ago, I talked about the shedding problem in our tank. We have a very large saltwater tank that is a new project in our house. And within just a few weeks of having the tank, John, my husband, found a dead shrimp at the bottom of the tank. And he was so sad. Somebody ate our shrimp. All that's left is a little body. And when I got home from work, he pulled it out of the trash and said, look, this is the little body. We have a murderer in our midst. So in the intervening time between when this happened and when the fish store opened, we learned that this type of shrimp, skunk shrimp, sheds. That was not its body. That was its exoskeleton. The shrimp was fine.
Yeah.
And we found the shrimp later and he's fine. So a couple days ago this week, John sends me a picture of baby Jessica, our rock flower anemone, with shrimp antenna coming out of its mouth.
Oh, no.
And he says, I think baby Jessica ate Leon.
These names are so ridiculous.
And I said, that does look pretty ominous. Like, that's definitely shrimp antenna coming out of its mouth. And I'm not about to stick my fingers inside an anemone to see what it ate.
No.
And then guess what happens?
Did she
Leon
spit it
comes
out?
out. Leon comes out of the rock. What is baby Jessica eating? The shed again. This man needs to learn that shrimp shed.
This is why I don't have an aquarium.
It's
It's
great.
like hard.
It's like Yellowstone or South Fork or Melrose Place. It's great. It's just drama.
One of the things my son has been doing, and bless when kids get older and become a little bit more self-sufficient, right? Like there's something to be said for that easy phase when they're babies, when you can just like put them in a place and then you walk away and they're fine. That's a great phase, right?
We call that baby containers.
Oh yeah.
Just put the baby in a container, whether it be the car seat or the swing or the playpen, but just put the baby in a container.
That's right.
That part is a great phase. And then there's the part that's like, 6 years right in the middle of this, where you are just on call all the time, right? Like, it's hard, right? There's so much about it that's like, there is no break. And then now we've hit 7, and I realize this is not every 7-year-old, but for us, like I can sleep until like 7, and then he will get up and he will go turn on the television and wait for us quietly while he watches TV and we pull ourselves together in the morning. Now that we're in that phase, sometimes when things go wrong technologically, we have an issue. But it used to be that he would be like, Dad, Netflix isn't working, like scream, whatever.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But that has sort of wound down. And about a week ago, we come out of the bedroom and we're like, groggy and a mess. And there's pieces of granola bar wrappers everywhere, all over the table and the couch.
Oh no.
And we're like, what happened here? And he goes, I'm stress eating granola bars. Netflix. And I was like, what? And he goes, I'm stress eating granola bars. Netflix isn't working. We were like, oh, okay. And it's like, of course, like the chewy dips that are like the chocolate dipped.
Yes.
And we're just like, oh my God, it's 7:00 and you've had this much chocolate and sugar and
Today's
a
great
medication.
day!
Yeah, you didn't take your medication last night, and this is going to be a real great Saturday morning. So it was just so funny for him to say, what 7-year-old says I'm stress eating granola bars?
Oh my gosh. But what I love about that is that he really took care of his needs.
Yes, he did.
Yes,
Yes,
like
he did. He didn't bother us for breakfast. He didn't.
I would say that was a pretty adaptive strategy, not maladaptive. I mean, like he didn't bother you. He didn't punch the wall. He just, He
Right.
ate some granola bars. I
He
think
ate
that's
some
magical.
granola bars. It was, and I had to
I
go
love
to the
that
store
for
and get
him.
more. Yeah, I had to go get more because he ate enough that I didn't have enough for the week, so I had to go get more. But it was very. We weren't even like mad. We were just like, this is amazing. Well done, kiddo. Let's fix it. And then you're gonna have some fruit because you need to have something else
to balance it out.
Right?
Yeah, maybe cheese stick,
something,
carrot stick, something.
Yeah, some protein, an egg, something.
Yeah. Here's a bowl.
Bring that
full
blood
of
sugar
spinach.
back down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Kale. Whatever else we can give you.
Man.
Right.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yep. Well, do you have a gem? Do you have anything ridiculous or fun or anything that happened this week or recently?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's like sort of in the same vein as yours with like a little punchline at the end, because mine's just a bad all around story for myself. So I'm at the beach. So I am here and I'm working. I'm doing a little bit of both. And I was like, gosh, it's blazing hot here, but I was like, down at the beach it's a little bit cooler. And I worked. I'm like, I planned like this whole day around this, like maybe 1 or 2 hours I'd be able to get away to the beach with my book, Monogamy.
Yes.
So I pack up my bag and I like to put my sunscreen on before I go because it's just better than the beach because then it gets all sandy, right? So I'm covered in sunscreen. I walk down to the beach. It's about like a 10 or 15 minute walk. I'm like hot now, like that uncomfortable kind. I cannot wait to get down to the beach. So where we are, you have to cross over like dunes.
Yes.
Right. So I have my bag, my chair, kind of laden down, and I'm walking over the dunes and I'm like, I can kind of see the beach looks really quiet, and it's the week after Labor Day, so it is quieter here, but I was like, gosh, it's weird, nobody's on the beach, like very few people, like 4. So I thought it just didn't, I was like, it didn't connect for me that something could be wrong, so I come over on the hump of the dune, I see that I'm about to get onto the beach, I look down at my leg and it's like black, covered in flies.
Ew.
Horse flies. Like it was like out of The Exorcist. I am like to do, so I like kind of keep walking and then I'm like, oh my God, they're all over me. They're on my head. Now they're going into my bag, into my beach bag. Right.
This is terrifying.
It was horrible.
This is like a plague from Exodus or something.
I am having
guys right now, like my chest is
I'm sweating. Oh my gosh.
I drop everything. There wasn't no one on the beach. There were a handful of people to witness this. Okay. I drop everything on the dunes in a panic and I run for the ocean. And I don't really like getting in the ocean, to be honest. It's like, I dip my toe, then my ankles. I plowed into the ocean. And I'm like, oh my God. And there's this one soul older guy there. He's like, oh, it's really bad today. And he shows me his can of like Deep Woods Off. Like, he's like, I'm covered in this and it's protecting me. He's like, you can have some. So, I mean, it was horrible. So I like come out and I'm like, okay, but I didn't know what to do. So I was like, so the minute I got out of the water, they were back on me again. Oh, so I ran back in the water. I'm like scrubbing my body. I'm scrubbing. And I get to the man, he's like, I'm like, I got to make a run for it. So he's like, sprays me all over. And I ran across the beach and I don't look like Pamela Anderson on Baywatch. Okay. It's like, I'm sorry. It's not a good look. And literally like the minute I crossed back onto the street, gone. And I'm like, God, why didn't I just turn around? But I didn't know, you know what I mean? Like I felt like I'd be able to walk through them. It was like the worst. I'm still like, I'm not quite over it, you guys. Like, no. So when I talk about it, you get that feeling in your throat when you feel like anxious. I have that right now.
Oh my God.
Oh no, not today. Not today.
I'm done. We're done.
But also that story feels like the birds.
Yes.
In a very intense nightmare.
Yeah, it's very Hitchcocky.
You guys are not going to believe me. I am not lying. So then yesterday I was like, let me go for a long walk. Not on the beach, BTW. Like I walked on the sidewalk. So I'm like, I'm going to go for a nice long walk. And that bird thing actually happened to me. Not that they were coming down on me, but I'm walking and all of a sudden there's this massive storm. I'm like, like,
okay, this beach town is haunted. Get out of there.
Yeah.
And they were
There's a million beaches on the East Coast. Pick a different one.
I love my beach. I was like, what is going on?
For real.
Just a little add-on, a gem 2.0.
Yes.
Nightmare fuel. Nightmare fuel. Anyone? All right.
Sorry, you guys.
No, it's fine. Maybe we'll take a break now so people can process this trauma.
Yeah.
Be right back.
Let's bring it back.
Let's do it. Cindy, thank you for humoring us on our ridiculous start to our show. Cindy's a PCI certified parent coach, and she's a Nurtured Heart Approach certified trainer. She's a mom for over 26 years, so that's well done.
Thank you.
She was an elementary classroom teacher for 10 years, and she has 3 sons, and all of this comes from experience and training, and you just believe in paying it forward so that other parents don't go through the same struggles that you've experienced. And we appreciate you being here. We cannot wait to hear about some of these tips that you have for us.
Yay! Welcome.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was lovely. Thank you. Thank you
Oh, of
guys for
course.
having me. I really appreciate being a guest on your show. So that's fun. And yeah, that's kind of my background, my story. It was like, you guys were teachers too. And I don't know if you went through this, but I could manage a classroom like the back of my hand. Before I had kids, I had these beyond rose-colored glasses of what parenthood was going to be for me.
Right.
Because I was going to have it all going on because I was a really good classroom teacher, and my husband and I are good people, and we're going to love these kids and provide them a great life. And so it's going to be smooth sailing. Right. And so, no, that did not happen. Not so much, was not smooth sailing. So, and particularly with one that sort of described the way that you described, the sort of similar things that you have with your son, where, just everything that I tried and everything that seemed to work on my oldest son just only made everything like far worse. So I feel like since he was about 2 and developed that personality, I've been on this journey of becoming a parent coach, because I have become a student of like, how the heck can this be so hard? There has to be a better way. Like it can't, just being frustrated and feeling ashamed and feeling dark and like hopeless sometimes, honestly. And we went through it. I mean, we really didn't get it together until this particular kid was really almost a teenager and started to really understand that you could drop him off at all the therapists and psychiatrists and dump all the medication into him that you wanted to. It never really moved the needle at home. And that's because we were still the parents that we were. Not that we were bad, it's not a judgment on us, but when you're not being helped with how to communicate with your child in a different way and to react to things differently, then nothing's going to change, because they're still coming into that same sort of environment. So that was
right.
As I was going through my parent coaching program, he was going through his worst trauma. And so we had this sort of parallel process of me shifting, my husband shifting, and then we were able to really develop a great relationship. And the end of the story is beautiful, because all 3 of them, I mean, he in particular is like killing it in life, and our relationship is great. So
that's awesome.
So far, I'm just blown away by the fact that there's a lot of self-reflection in what you just said. When you're a teacher in particular, you do have this very idealistic, view of how you're going to raise your kid, right? Like, and I've noticed a lot of teachers who really do go through it with their kids. And I don't know if that's because that's who I was around a lot of the time when I was working, and I would just hear their stories, but I'd be like, why is it always teachers' kids? Why is it always teachers' kids, right? Like there's something about that, but also maybe it is because you're coming at it from a perspective of, I can handle kids, right? Like I got this, I know what it is, but it's so different when you're seeing them for 45 minutes to 90 minutes at a time, and then they move on to the next person. I mean, and I've always said like, oh, when he's 12, I got this, right? I can handle a 12-year-old, but I'm sure he's going to give me a run for my money. Like I have no doubt in my mind. So I just appreciate that you were just saying it's not because of what we weren't bad at this, but it did require us to really stop and look at what we were doing and change the environment that he was in order to be what he needed for the behavior to change.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of things that go on in the classroom. And honestly, I've coached guidance counselors of elementary schools and middle schools. First of all, how much classroom management did you get in college, like to learn how to manage? Very little, right? You got like 0 or 1 class maybe. And what is it all based on? Oh, consequences and rewards, right? Reward them for the good behavior, punish them for the bad behavior, and voila, you'll have a perfect classroom, right? It's very much geared towards controlling a behavior, to getting kids to do what you want them to do, right? We would have those traffic lights, right? So green, yellow, red. So, it's lovely. All the kids are going to start on green in the beginning of the day. It's perfect. It's positive. All you have to do is just follow the rules and you get to be on green all day. And if you stay on green long enough, you're going to get to pick out of my prize box, or we'll have a pizza party, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Inevitably, every kid who stayed on green that first day pretty much stayed on green the whole year. Because guess what? Yep. They had the skill set to do what they needed to do. And the kids who were on yellow and red would get in trouble every day.
Right.
Instead of changing the approach, which should be more of a mindset of, okay, maybe there's a skill missing. Maybe this kid actually cannot do this thing. So how about instead of punishing them for acting crazy when we come in for recess, how about we sit down with that child and say, it seems like you're having a lot of difficulty when we come in for recess. Tell me what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why is this hard for you? And then really listening. And so, I'm a big fan of Ross Green. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but I use him a lot in my coaching and with teachers, because he says, we should be adopting the mindset of kids do well if they can, not kids do well if they want to. So in the classroom, we are all approaching it as they would do well if they wanted to. So I'm going to make it so unpleasant when they're bad and so great when they're good that they'll want to. And then when we get no different results, we're not changing it, right? Because the kids who are bad are just, and that was the same thing with my son. I'd be like, let me dangle rewards. Let me do sticker charts. I did all the classroom stuff at home. I'm great at that. He's going to get it. He could not have cared less about that. And also he couldn't do it. He was impulsive. He didn't have the skill set to not overreact. He had very maladaptive strategies to handling his emotions.
Yes.
And so I could punish him until the cows came home.
Right. It'd be like if you had a sticker chart for me for singing. I can't do it. It doesn't matter what kind of rewards you give me. Someone needs to teach me how.
Well, Jenny, I'm going to punish you if you don't sing well tomorrow.
Right. And I'm already punishing you by singing. So.
Right. And these kids are already getting punished enough because they're in shame all the time.
Yes. And the only time they hear their name is when there's a consequence behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then guess what? They do start acting like jerks because their shame armor is so thick. Right? My son wasn't going to crumble up and cry when you yelled at him. He was going to give you the proverbial or sometimes actual middle finger.
Right.
Yeah.
You're shaming him. And he has now had such a lifetime of taking the shame that he has developed this huge armor, and he is going to not let you penetrate it.
And I'm just thinking about like those my son has big feelings like that and some maladaptive strategies for dealing with those things. And some of them are learned behaviors, I would say, but others of them I've never seen from myself, from my husband. They're just how he manifests his feelings. And so there's, we have work to do. And that means that I have work to do, right? Like on myself and how I, you're right there. And the shame armor comes up, but also there is a lot of internalizing of that feeling that we also have to work through at the same time. It's like, I know that right now you feel like you can't. I understand that completely. And I just want to help you figure out a way that you can. And I'm seeing that like the quote that's here on our notes is, when your kid says you're stupid, agree with them. I will say, I'm not going to argue with you right now. I hear what you're saying. Like those are my responses when we start to move towards that, because otherwise it does turn into this big, dumpster fire of an event at our house. So, I'm very open to hearing how we avoid those power struggles and all of that. So
yeah, obviously that's like a little bit of a teaser, right? So your kid tells you you're stupid, like agree with them. Parents are like, what? That's so disrespectful. Like, why would I do that?
Right.
But it's kind of the mindset of, right, like first of all, when a child is angry and then you try to logic them out of that by giving them all the reasons why they shouldn't be feeling the way that they're feeling, then they're, first of all, their low brain, the amygdala, that fight or flight is just on fire. So nothing is getting through, right? So you could give them all the reasons why you're not stupid, or start to tell them rationally why that's not okay to talk to me like that, or whatever it is. And you're going to just get an escalation. You give a fire oxygen, it's going to just keep burning. So how do you stop that fire from burning is just to withdraw the oxygen, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing with your child. So, and the other side of it's sort of craziness. Like, why do we do that? So like you tell your child, they want to have like, a donut before dinner, just something stupid like that. Right.
Sure.
And you're like, well, we're not going to have a donut. It's almost dinner. And then they start to freak out. And you're like, well, you're the only mom who won't let me do this, and who cares? And I'm going to still make dinner, whatever. Right. And you're like, you start to say, well, I know I'm not the only mom, because I know like Jenny wouldn't give her, right. You start to give your,
you rationalize.
So,
yeah.
And the kid, and then you're in it. Like he says something, you say something, he says something, you say something. And at what point in all those reasons that you are giving your child of why your argument is so logical and why it makes so much sense, does your kid go, oh my God, Mom,
you're so right.
You make so much sense. I don't even want that donut. That donut.
That never happens.
I don't know what I was thinking. Like, your kid is never going to say that. So the fastest path, like, I love this guy, Dr. Brad Reedy, who I sort of discovered as my son was going through his trauma. It's a story for another day, but he is phenomenal. And he says, let your kids be right. And it's this whole idea of, you know what, they might be right. You might be the most strict parent on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Allow them that. You know what, you might be right. Not in our sarcastic way, not in like, okay, yeah, you're right. No, like, you know what, you're probably right. It's possible that I am the most strict parent. Unfortunately, this is just what I'm comfortable with. And then you don't have to say another word.
Right.
Like, there's nothing more to say. So when I first started doing this, so by the time I kind of got this information, which was like a big jaw dropping aha, like, oh my God, wow, could I have used this 10 years ago? Mm-hmm. I would have had like way many less gray hairs and wrinkles. I said, when, I'm doing it with my son, and he would want to go like with the things that we were arguing about. And he would be like, you're the only parent who would, whatever. And I said, you know what? You're probably right. Unfortunately, this is just my decision and where I feel comfortable right now. And he's like, I am right.
Okay.
All right, cool.
It was over. Where before I would say, well, no, that's not true, because, I know that Connor's mom doesn't want him to do that either, because we talked yesterday, and, and no, it's not a good idea. And no, you won't wake up, because remember last week you didn't wake up when you wanted to go do this thing. And, no, it's not a good idea to eat a taco in a bag before your swim race, because remember last time you threw up when you got out, like all the things, like, It's just, you know what, maybe you're right. Maybe it is a strict or stupid decision. It really could be, but this is just what I'm comfortable with.
This is what we're doing anyway.
It's a boundary. It's just a boundary. Mm-hmm. And they can have whatever reaction they want to have. They don't have to like it. They don't have to agree with you, but we're always working so hard to get our kids to kind of see why what we're doing is sensical and good. And, it's just not going to work. They're not buying into you, and you're giving all kinds of energy to this fight that is, it's just a futile effort. You don't need to do it. So save your energy. That's what I tell parents all the time. I'm like, just save your energy at all costs.
How many times have I said to a colleague, you can't reason with crazy? When there's a kid who's just completely gone off the rails and they're in their lizard brain, right? You cannot reason with crazy. Like we've seen that in political discussions with adults, right? You just can't have a conversation with someone who is so
dysregulated.
Right. Dysregulated. Yes. I like that word better than my lunacy. Right. But it's just, it just is exhausting for you when you put effort into it. So you might as well just go, yep. Right.
What I'm saying is, this is my decision and it's just what I'm comfortable with. I understand how you feel. I'm sure you're disappointed. I know you wish I was making a different decision. It's like, it's okay for them not to be comfortable or happy with your decision. And the piece that I really encourage parents to do all the time is just give your kid the name for that emotion and an acceptance of that emotion. You're okay with them feeling the way that they're feeling. They're angry. I know you're really frustrated, and I know you wish you could play Xbox for another hour, even though during the week our rule is 1 hour. Right. And when the kid can't get off in an hour and they're completely dysregulated, even with that boundary, and they won't get off, and it's kooky town in your house every time you get off Xbox, then can you put the genie back in the bottle? Yes, you can. I'm not comfortable having it in the house anymore. It's just not working for us. We can revisit it next year. Your kid will be just fine. You can put the genie back in the bottle, and you should. Honestly, like I tell parents this all the time. I'm like, They're like, well, I don't want my kid to be the only one. And I'm like, it's causing chaos and mayhem in your house. Yeah. It's just not good for your child. Like it is our job. You know, if your kid said, I just want to have donuts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's all I'm eating from now on. There's not a parent out there that I think would have any problem at all saying, yeah, that's just not happening. Because you're so certain about it, right? There's no gray for you there. That's not, you know, you're not looking left and right. Well, geez, is Jimmy's mom letting him have donuts? It's just like, no, like we're definitely not doing that. But we start to do that with smartphones, social media use, screen time, whatever it is. These things, for whatever reason, parents have started to believe they're gray. They're not gray. They're black and white. It is not good for your child, right, to have unfettered access to technology. Or you try it and wherever they are developmentally, they're not quite ready for it. That's okay. Then you put the genie back in the bottle. We're just not comfortable with it anymore. We've done some research, or just we've tried these different solutions. They're not really working. It's causing too much chaos. It's just not good for us.
I love that line. I'm not comfortable with this. It's just not good for us. I love that.
Less is more is a big part of what I coach. Less is more. You don't need to be doing everything for your kid. You do need to be setting boundaries. And one of the strategies that I pretty much teach everybody that I work with is this stop. It's so simple and seems so stupid, but like it's really important that anytime you're going to go into an interaction with your kids, that you take a moment, because you want to be mindful and you want to make sure that, you know, does it need to be said? Is this a place where I really need to set a boundary? Where is this coming from in me? Is this, like you said, like, is this a me problem? Is this triggering something for me? And, you know, so the S is like, okay, so you get some kind of stimulus coming from your child and you want to say something or react to it. I just say, just stop. That's the S. Just don't yet. And then the T is take a breath, take a minute. The O is the observation piece. And that's where you're going to observe the child. Like what could be going on for them that could be making them act a certain way, but also observing yourself. You know, when parents have little kids, I'm like, you have a 2-year-old on the ground in Target screaming, right? And you observing yourself can be very eye-opening, because you're like, oh, I am freaking out inside that this kid is doing this. But what is actually going on? It's a 2-year-old on the floor having a tantrum. There's nothing really bad happening here.
Right.
I am safe. My health is good. We're going to get out of this. So the observation allows you to re-regulate yourself. I think it changes the game. And then the P is then you can proceed, because you've given yourself just a little hiccup, right? And it interrupts that normal like stimulus response. So you're not just knee-jerk reacting to things. Of course, you have to remember to do the stop, and that takes practice, but it's very helpful. And I use it all the time now, even like when adults bother me. And that helps a lot. But the boundary setting is important. It's their health, safety, and well-being is what you're responsible for, right? Sprinkle in, I think, your own family values, what is important to you as a family, what you're comfortable with. There's that word again, right? So wherever you have that in your parenting, when those types of issues that fall under those categories come up, move forward with total confidence in your boundary. Don't second guess yourself. Don't be like, well, what time? Because that parents will want me to tell them that. Right. They'll want me to say, well, how much time should my kid be playing Xbox? And I'll say, oh my gosh, that's totally up to you.
Yeah.
It's totally up to you. What do you think you're comfortable with? I don't know. All right. Well, how could you get more comfortable? What do you need to do to get comfortable? So we can learn, right? We can read research. We can talk to our doctors. We can get on the World Health Organization. We can get on the American Pediatric Association. There's so much out there to learn. Like what is the research saying? Then you can do your anecdotal research. How's it going in your house? And how does it feel, right? Like, a lot of times I think parents have shut down that. And I was guilty of this all over the place, but just like, I'm not really listening to my intuition. I would feel like when my kids started to want to have some of that stuff, and of course it was like my generation was building the plane as we were flying it, because it was all kind of unrolling as my kids were growing up. But like, I had a sense it wasn't good. Know, there was a lot of it I really didn't feel comfortable with. And I really wish I had the confidence back then to just listen to myself. But I didn't have the words to say to my kids. It would have ended up in some kind of volatile thing. And I had this little egoic worry that my kid wouldn't have what everyone else is having.
Right.
My kid wouldn't be able to talk about these games or whatever. Guess what? If you're parenting from a place of confidence and you have a loving family and that's what you got going on, and you lean into your family values, your kid's going to be just fine. You're not, you don't need to, you're not being a dictator. You're literally doing your job. You're making decisions that you truly believe are in the best interest of this child and their well-being.
Well, and I want to kind of hone in on that piece when you said in the best interest of this child, because I have 2 children who are vastly different and have different needs from me as a parent.
Right. My kids were all different too. I call them my bookends, the first and the last were kind of non-confrontational by nature, not really a boundary pusher by nature. Another thing you can kind of filter things through is fostering in all the interactions that you have with them as much as you can, like fostering their autonomy, fostering their sense of competency, and fostering relatedness, like how connected they feel to you. And so even in those conversations with your daughter, who is very receptive to conversation, just being mindful of allowing her to have autonomy in that conversation. Just because she's even keeled and not blowing up the conversation,
right,
there's still things about the way that you're communicating with her that will be beneficial to her. Like saying, this is opposed to you sitting down and saying, here's what you need to do, which I'm not saying you're doing, but parents can really take advantage of a child who is calm when you sit down to talk and just say, this happened. That was really tough. What do you think was going on there for you?
Right,
and what do you think you could do differently? Right. Which sounds like maybe that is the kind of parent that you are. So it's because not that I took advantage, but I very much leaned into the fact that my other 2 were easygoing. And it's not that I felt like I just didn't have a whole lot of conflict with them. And I would say my very average parenting worked just fine for them, but it doesn't mean that I couldn't have upped my game. What I mean? Like because like you talked a little bit about nurtured heart, which comes up a lot. And when, more often than not, when I would say a lot of the people that I'm coaching tend to have like one of my kids, like a type of kid that my kid was. And they'll have other kids in the household, but they're coming to me mainly for this one where people are kind of walking like eggshells around this kid, that's the one. And I'll say to them, like, we're going to work on this for sure about this specific things with this child. But what I would like to encourage you to do and invite you to do is just apply it to all your children. So, because it's just really good relational, foundational ways of interacting with a child. Really just, you could, I've had moms who come, because I'll coach couples a lot, but sometimes it's like the mom coming to me and it's everything that's wrong with the dad, but the dad doesn't want to get on the phone.
Right.
And what's interesting in that is that usually like that woman grows an awareness of her ability to set boundaries in her own actual like adult relationship. So it sometimes ends up sort of awakening her to like setting boundaries with a husband, of saying, here's what I'm comfortable with and here's what I'm no longer comfortable with, so there's a lot of great, I love this journey with children. I mean, it's so messy and crazy and kooky and there's no one right path. I mean, I'm certainly not here saying, here's the way you need to parent. I am saying, please listen to your gut and please work on relationship. I think those 2 things together can just move mountains. But I just think my kids taught me everything I know about myself.
Wow.
I love who I am for having parented, particularly, I mean, all of them, but like my middle son taught me my best lessons for sure about myself. And then it made me look in a mirror that I didn't really, it's like when you first wake up in the morning.
Yes.
Or at least me at 54 without the makeup and the hair slicked back. It's not pretty. That, it's like that look like, oh my gosh, like, oh my God, what a hypocrite I am. I had to kind of come to terms with some of that stuff. Like I'm asking this child to do things that I cannot do as an adult. So just a lot of stuff like that. So I just, just a lot of it we take so seriously. I'm like, just to bring a little ease, a little calm into the journey, reminding yourself you've got this. It's gonna, so what, it didn't go well, we can redo, we can try again tomorrow. Like having yes, tomorrow's always there. Hopefully.
Yeah. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood, right?
I do also, this talk of boundaries is becoming very popular, right? Excuse me, right now, where everyone is talking about boundaries. But I love that some of what you've done is associate the boundary setting with self-care and making sure that you are doing things that you are comfortable with. And I'm just wondering, can you speak a little bit more about that self-care piece and how this all relates to your parenting journey?
Yeah, for sure. So, and self-care is another word that gets bandied about. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about, I guess it's whatever you want it to be for yourself. But I feel like I always have that question when I do an intake. It's on my intake form, like, what are you doing for self-care? Most of the time, we are, as a society, running at a low, not quite a boil, but most of us are just under, right?
Right.
It's like, and I use this all the time, but like if you have a pot on the stove and you had just kept it on a temperature where it would have like those little bubbles on the bottom, but nothing else, like the top was pretty calm. I think most of us are, if we're being honest, walking around like that, right? And so like how much energy or input would it take to turn that pot into boil? Like just the tiniest smidge,
Right.
and it's like, woo, right? And I think that piece of it is where that self-care comes in, because if you're always like that, right, we're always, here, then anything coming in is not going to take much to get us here.
Right.
And when you are dysregulated yourself, nothing good is happening with you and your child. Like you're not going to get a child to come down that way. You're also teaching them, and this is something that sort of connects with the nurtured heart, that the best way to get my attention, my relationship, my energy is to misbehave, because that's when I'm going to go big. When you're being good and you're quiet, I'm unplugged. I'm over here getting stuff done. And so for kids who have parents who are all working and everyone's busy and they're at school all day or they're at daycare all day, and then they only have this moment of time with their parents, a short amount, and they want that connection, they want that relationship. And from a very young age, they've learned like, oh, when I cause mayhem, everyone's in. Game on, my parents come in every time.
Totally.
So that can get you in a lot of trouble, because you could just be on a path, and if you don't interrupt that bring, whatever that neural pathway is, oh, when I misbehave, everyone's in, it gets so rutted. You have to learn how to turn that around. So the only way you can really start with that is to turn down the energy all the way around negative behavior. So turn that pot down, put some ice cubes in it. How do you do that? Self-care, right? You have to take care of yourself. So you have to find ways to and the stop strategy is just a piece of that. It's just being mindful. It's like, whatever you can do on a daily basis that really calms your system, that you train your brain to kind of operate, to take yourself off that low boil, that you can walk through life more calm internally, because then when the stuff comes out, you're going to have a fighting chance of not freaking out and not making that energy go hog wild when your kid's misbehaving. And then of course, then those other pieces is what I teach parents through the coaching, is like, how can you then create that same energetic feeling, because they still want the connection when good things are happening. So you have to sort of retrain your brain, but the self-care piece has to come first. That's like the foundation of the house. You have to have it. It's the big rock. It needs to be part of every day. So for some of my clients, like I had one mom who, this was one of the moms who came by herself, but she was like, oh God, I haven't even thought about my self-care. She ran her own business out of her house. Her husband was, not really involved as much as he should, she needed him to be, I guess I should say. She's like, I'm going to take a bath. I haven't taken a bath in forever. And baths really, I love them. They calm me down. So she created this ritual. She went to her family, like, this is what I'm doing every day. I don't know if she's still doing it, but like for that time period, she took a 20-minute break. She took a hot bath, and she's like, it has changed my life. Or you do yoga, or you meditate, or you write in your journal, or you go for a nature walk. But I think it's just anything that re-regulates you. And it's a practice, and you're doing it every single day, and you're committed to it in the same way you wouldn't skip brushing your teeth. Well, most of us no judgment. I know sometimes things get busy.
Caitlin has the best phrase about brushing your teeth. At night, we brush our teeth for ourselves. In the morning, we brush them for our friends.
I love that. That's awesome. going to use that.
Please do.
Yeah. So, but it's like what I'm saying is that it's that much of a routine, right? It's just part of what you do. It's just, this is just what I do every day. And it doesn't have to be, really long. And maybe it means you get up 15 minutes earlier, but I think it's super important because we have to learn how to calm down.
This is really important. I think we've talked about self-care on an episode. It was episode 7. So like many moons ago at this point. But we did talk about it as the spa day thing. That's a treat for yourself. That's not self-care. That's you.
I'm all about a spa day. Go do it.
100%. But that's not self-care the way that it needs to be thought of. But I love the idea of self-care is a form of re-regulation. That is a way that I think it will resonate with me in something that's truly a way for me to get it done every single day, because we did talk about how it needs to be routine. It needs to be something that becomes a habit, because otherwise it won't be self-care. It'll just be a treat for yourself. So, but putting it in this mindset of like, this is not just, something that I do because I like having my nails done every week. This is something that I do because this is how my brain returns to that pot being not boiling at all, right? This is how I completely take the pot off the burner. That's a really good way to look at it. And I very much
and I think I put in the thing, it's like that, the cliched oxygen mask principle. Like if you're not okay, you're no good to anybody else. And so I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of shoulds. It should be this, it should be that. It's, and that can be off-putting. And we're already stressed. Like I don't need another should in my life, but whatever works for you. And you can try different things, it's not one size fits all. And, just to add one more little clip to that. So this, it's also, self-care is also just how you are treating yourself. The judgment, oh God, I'm like the worst mom, or, God, I can't believe I blew up again, or why can't I get my, what together? My house is a wreck. Like I'm the worst. That is another piece of self-care is, there I go again, no, I'm not talking to myself. That doesn't serve me anymore. Like I'm going to reframe it. So, if Jenny's talking to Jenny, she's going to talk to Jenny the way, well, I don't know how you guys talk to each other, but I'm assuming if Jenny called you and said, I can't believe I just blew up my kid, you're not gonna be like, God, you're the worst. I'm sure you're like, oh my God, it's so hard, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to give her some, so it's like being a friend to you in the same way you would be to somebody else is the other piece, because there's no, I just remember myself, like, because it got bad and I'm like yelling at this kid and saying things to him that I'm like, why would I say that to him? He's a child. But in the moment, I'm like so angry and I just want this thing to stop. And the things I would say to myself and the way that I felt about myself, it got heavy and dark. Like this, it was on my back, right?
Right.
How am I good to anybody like that?
And how can you parent from a place of confidence when you talk to yourself like that? Because you're destroying your self-confidence. I mean, think about all the things that you've, internalized about the way you look or whatever. You've destroyed your confidence that way. But if you constantly beat yourself up as a parent, you cannot, that's why those people come to you and say, I don't know, because they truly don't have any self-confidence as a parent, because they beat themselves up about the way that they're parenting because of the way that their kid is acting out. Right. So it's a circle. It's just,
And there's so many messages out there. You should be gentle parenting. You should be a this parent or that parent. And I'm like, how about we just wipe all that off and like, just go here, like what feels good to me. What's my instinct telling me? You've got so much wisdom in there if you let it be there. And like your self-care could just be getting up in the mirror in the morning and be like, you rock, like you're crushing it today. And I think Mel Robbins is the one who does like that high five in the mirror. Like it could be, if that's all you can do, because like anything else feels overwhelming, like just just plant the seed of, I'm going to reframe when I'm going to reset myself. And I'm going to just try and be really mindful of that negativity that I'm pointing back at myself, because I am a great mom. I am trying and I care about my kids and I'm human. And of course, I'm not going to be perfect. Like I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to behave in ways that I wish I hadn't. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's part of everything, And
I read Self-Compassion by Dr. Neff 10 years ago. And I just the other day said, I think I need to pick that book back up and spend some time in it, because I started to hear some negative self-talk and said, okay, it's time for me to revisit that. Are you treating yourself like your best friend?
This is, I truly just had an epiphany, like, of, you know, how can I possibly parent from a place of confidence if I speak to myself as a parent the way that I do? And the other day when my child had a full scale meltdown, like, we're talking the kind of meltdown where, if you ever, you know, the episode of The Office where it's a Christmas party and Angela completely loses her mind because Kelly kisses Dwight and she goes into the parking lot in a snowstorm and she starts throwing ornaments and screaming in the parking lot. That is what my child looked like. And I just was like, I somehow, by the grace of the great spaghetti monster or whoever it is that watches out for people, I stayed calm. And I was just like, you're right. You're so right. And after that was over and he went to sleep, finally, I was just like, I deserve the biggest pat on the back for that. And for whatever reason, just that has carried me through this solo parenting that I've been doing for the past 36 hours. Just me looking at that and being like, I handled that full scale meltdown in a way that I have never handled any other meltdown in my life. And I deserve a cookie. Like, not a real cookie. Not a real one right now, because I've already brushed my teeth. I don't need to have another cookie. But I just deserve, like, whatever parenting pat on the back there is. And it has truly given me the strength that I've needed to get through the past 36 hours doing this by myself while my husband's away. So
powerful.
Right.
There's a great example of that. It's
You're
so
right.
powerful. It's just like, it's so funny because I will ask about that. I'm like, well, where are your family strengths? And like, what about your kid? And like, what's working? And sometimes they really struggle just to pull that out because it's so bad, or they feel like it's so bad. But that initial call is where that seed is planted. Like, so just for this week, how about just try to focus on finding even if it's tiny, like you asked your kid to pass you the ketchup and they didn't tell you to go blank and they didn't throw it or tell you to get it yourself. They handed you the ketchup. That's a win. You know, like look for those little moments, just those little moments. And then if something negative happens, I want you to do your best to just, like we talked about, the energy. So it's so interesting, just that tiny little seed. By the next week, more often than not, they're like, we had a really good week. I don't know what happened. You know, and it is just that mind shift. What you focus on grows.
I love it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's a great way. I have so appreciated this. I do feel like I've had, again, at least one epiphany, if not a couple, in all of this. What you focus on grows is just that's a great line. And I feel like that could sum up a lot of what we've talked about today, for sure.
I agree.
So thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, no, it was fabulous.
You guys are a hoot.
We know, but thank you.
If I come to Austin, can I look you up? I would love
yes,
to
of course you can.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Please do come back and join us anytime. We would love to have you.
Oh my gosh, I would love it. Thank you for having me again. And
of course.
You know, hope you never have like a fly situation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I hope I never have a fly situation. Whoa. Nightmares.
It's so funny.
Oh my goodness.
All right,
y'all. Stop and make good choices.
Give yourself some grace. Talk to yourself in a positive way. You can put the genie back in the bottle. You got this. Okay, bye.
Hey friends, thanks for listening to the CK and GK podcast. Find us at CK and GK podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or anywhere else that you pod. See you next time.